Is the human race going to end up like the dodo? Or the dinosaur? Or the woolly mammoth? Well, is it? Why not? Why shouldn't the human race end up extinct? Just like some of those other creatures that we knew existed at one point in time, but don't exist in the world today. Let's be quite realistic. It is very possible. I don't think it's going to happen now, but I think it does bring home the fact how vulnerable the human race is. I think it's also pretty clear that a great deal of the human race is still very naive when it comes to certain things. Everyone's concerned about their freedom being taken away, and when they have to have this device on their phone, for example, that lets people know where you are at any one particular point in time. But don't they realise that, if you've got a bank account, people know all about you? Okay? If you've got a medical record, people know all about you. If you've got a national insurance number, people know all about you. You've got a history out there of where you lived, where you were. People can track you all the time in the world we live in today. Yes, there are a few people that do go under the radar, but most people accept the fact that there are people out there, Big Brother or whoever, who know where you are. It's never bothered me, I've got to be honest. So I don't get frantic when people ask me questions. Should you be taking that vaccine? Or is that the right advice? Or do you trust what the government is saying? Yeah, look, I take a lot of stuff I hear with a pinch of salt. I'm not naive. And I do think there is a time somewhere out there in the future when potentially the human race won't be there in the world. Going to happen. I don't think it's now, but I think it will happen. But I do think we've got to change. I think we have to change. I don't think we can continue going forward as we have been. So when I see these newsreels coming up of people now going into restaurants in Australia, sitting very far apart and saying, well, this is okay, but I'll be looking forward to when it's the normal routine again and we'll be back to a packed house. Well, I don't think we'll ever get to a packed house. No, I don't. I think that those days are gone. I think, restaurants have got to learn to cope with the new normal of having fewer people and safer distances as far as serving, and it goes with retailing in general. They've got to have to accept the fact they can't pack them in, pile it in, as it were, pile it up, sell it cheap, as it were. Those days have gone. Those days have definitely gone, and we've got to be thinking about how the process goes forward. It's also quite astounding. People who are coming out of this lockdown, they're sort of saying, well, this is over. It's not so bad. It's over. It's not over. We're over the first wave, as it were. And we're going through this process of having survived the first wave, those of us who have been lucky enough, fortunate enough to have survived. But we've got to remember, we're going to go through a very strange kind of summer where no one's going to go on holiday. And then we're going to go into a winter, or an autumn and a winter, when we're going to get those dark nights and those cold nights. And we're going to be going into that's when all the bugs and the diseases, and when the hospitals do tend to fill up anyway. And we've got to survive autumn and winter with this virus. And it's going to come back. It hasn't gone away, it's out there. So we've got to be preparing for that. Preparing how we are going to cope with the winters with this virus and get through that as well. And then we'll have done a full 12 months and we'll be able to establish then where life is taking us. What are we going to do? How are we going to live? How are we going to survive? I think we've all got to start being a bit more mentally alert to the fact that life is changing and we have to look at how we go forward. You know, whatever you had on your table and we're going to plan to do this year, forget it. In most cases, I'm not saying in every case, but we've got to forget it. We've got to think about the new routes forward. I think it's very important. Family and relatives meet up and get together in this process. I think it's very important for us to get together in our groups, in our churches, and our clubs and places of meeting where we used to meet with our social friends. We're going to get those areas right and conditioned to cope with this. I mean, when I say churches, I don't just mean churches, of course. I mean mosques, temples, everything needs to come in line with this new way of how we're going to have to live. You know, cinemas have got to. There will be cinemas, of course there will, but how they are structured with people in them. Obviously there'll be fewer people in them for one session, one film, as will be in restaurants. Restaurants have to be a certain size to accommodate so many people. You can't just cram in the tables and the chairs and that's the way it's going to be. There's got to be a process in place, I'm afraid, and that's how it will have to work. That does come at a price, of course it does. As it does with going on transport, public transport, aircraft, trains, buses. All has to look at their situations very carefully. The retail outlets, they've all got to look at their position when it comes to handling people going through them. And we have to become responsible as individuals when we go out into these public places as well, and make sure we understand the rules clearly. This isn't the government's fault. This isn't any political party's fault. This is possibly the human race as a whole, their fault. There's an issue here. There's a problem here that's developed, that's started. But we've got to put that right. So yeah, this isn't the time now when the human race comes to an end, no. But this is certainly a time when the human race changes its direction in terms of where it goes going forward, how it does things. We've got to look at new ways of entertainment. We've got to look at new ways of doing business. We've got to look at new ways of showing how we care. I mean, at the moment now, to show love and care now, it's all about staying away from people, which is totally the opposite to what we used to do. But that's what it boils down to. Yeah, so it is a different world out there. Sorry, I'm not depressing anybody. The intention is not to depress people. The intention is to give you the facts as they are. Talk to you again tomorrow. Cheers.